What's up, ladies? Welcome back to my channel. We are back with another video, and today this video is going to be just simply a full set with some bling. This was a freestyle. I just kind of did it, off the top of my head. Nothing too major, but I wanted to, of course, bring you along and show you step by step. So, of course, we start by pushing back the cuticles, and I'm using my cone drill bit to drill around the cuticles to get all the excess dead skin out. Believe it or not, there's usually a lot hiding up under there, like just a lot of nitty gritty that needs to be cleaned out. And of course, it does help with lifting. Here, I'm just going over with my sanding band to get rid of all the natural oils. We really have to make sure that we do this, ladies, because it helps prevent breakage, lifting, and just overall helps improve the retention rate. Every step that you see in all of my videos is the key to a long lasting set. So if you ever see anything in here and you wonder if you can skip over it or if you really have to do it, trust me, you do. I will always say, if a step is optional or not, but 9 times out of 10, most of the steps, especially the prep, is extremely important. So here I'm just going in with my nippers, and I am getting rid of all of her excess cuticles. This is really important, you guys, because it helps prevent lifting. So I'm just going to go in and apply the nail tips. She's getting, I believe she ended up getting like a medium long square. So yeah, I'm just going to go in and apply all these tips and cut them down to the desired length. A nice tip is to never cut the nail tips down to the exact length that they want them. Every nail tech might do this differently, but I always recommend to cut them just a tad bit longer, because when you go to file, of course, if you're like me, you do put a lot of work into the filing. So I like to leave them a little bit longer. That way, when I go to get that crisp shape, I do have room to work with, rather than cut them down to the exact length and then try to go back through and file them. Sometimes you gotta put a little extra into that filing, and I don't ever want to file them down too short. So that's just something that I've learned, and it's helped me, but might not be the same for everyone. So now I'm just going in and getting, like I said, she's doing a nice squared shape. So I'm just filing the sides at that 90-degree angle, and of course getting the free edge, filing that straight down at a 90-degree angle to get that nice, crispy, clean shape. Another tip that I want to give you guys when it comes to filing is, file for a few seconds, or I should say file a few times on the side and then stop. Don't go super hard on it, because then you'll go back to look at the shape and it will be more filed on one side, or you filed it too much. So the best tip I can give when it comes to that is, file for a little bit on each side and then just keep going back and checking it, because it's better to have to file more off than to have filed too much off, and now you have to either adjust the shape or take off the tip and apply a new one, start back over, so it's just easier to work little by little, I guess you should say. And of course, I always like to get underneath the nail as well, because having that nice, clean, straight underneath, I guess you can call it, definitely plays a part in the outcome of the set and making it just look really nice and uniform and classy. Of course, I always tell you guys to look over your shaping. Well, anything for that matter. Always flip the hand multiple different ways, look at it from multiple different angles, so you can just get a lot of views, make sure that they're how you want them all around and not just from one view. So now I'm going to go in with my sanding band again, and in this step I'm just going to slightly go over where the natural nail meets the nail tip, and I'm just going to file down a little bit. And this is just, like I said, blending the nail tip in with the natural nail to prevent any breakage and lifting. You do not have to go super hard with this, just slightly going over it. I didn't mention this in the beginning, but if you watch my other videos, I do always mention that you want to keep the file moving when working on the natural nail, or when working in general, because you can cause friction, which will cause a lot of heat to the nail, and it does not feel good at all, ladies, trust me. So I just applied the dehydrator, and I'm going back in with my protein bond. These help get rid of all the natural oils again one last time before prep, and also helps the acrylic adhere. If you guys notice, when I filed the natural nail, well, not filed the natural nail, when I blended the nail tip in, I also filed over top of the nail tip, and I do that because I've found that that has helped with my acrylic adhering better. Maybe that is just a myth. Maybe it doesn't work as good as I think it does, but I feel like it has helped a lot. So it might not work for you. That's a totally optional step, but I definitely recommend it. So if you guys watched my previous video, I'm not sure if it was the one right before this, but it was one of my previous videos where I did mention that I was thinking about trying a new technique when it came to placing the acrylic, which I did try on this pinky nail, which was basically getting my first bead and applying it at where the natural nail and the nail tip meet, and then placing one underneath and then one above that, and then at the cuticle. It worked good with the pinky, but I'm just stuck in my old ways. So for the rest of the set, I did just do my normal method, which I will explain. As you can see, this pinky still came out really nice, really laid. The foundation was still great, but I just really love the 4 bead method that I normally do. And again, if you watch other videos with other techs, they might have their own way or own advice as to how they recommend applying acrylic. It's what works best for you, ladies. So don't, feel pressured or feel like you're doing it wrong if you're doing it differently from how they recommended. So that's all these videos are for. It's just for help, just for you guys to get a little guidance and to see how other people do it, and to take that and do what you will with it. So you might end up doing it differently, you might end up doing it the same, but either way, as long as your clients are happy and your work is good, it doesn't even matter. So here I'm just going back in with my normal method, which is typically a 4 bead method, unless I'm doing like extra long. So I like to just start at the bottom of the tip with a bead and then really work my way up. So when applying the acrylic, you do not want to drag it or like pull it down. You really just want to be very gentle and pat it, like lightly feather it down, as you can see when I go to clean my brush off on my napkin, that I do not have much acrylic coming back with me. So you just want to slightly feather it down. And another thing that I always mention in all my videos is that the better you do your application, the less work that you'll have in the end when it comes to filing and shaping. So I try to keep it as clean as possible, as you can see. Always cleaning around the edges, making sure that no excess acrylic has stays behind. And also, ladies, when you get close to the cuticle, you do not need to put the bead right on top of the cuticle. As you'll see, I place it like right underneath, because when you go to feather it down or like pat it down, it does push it, it does push it up a little bit, enough to where you still have coverage, but you didn't cover the cuticle. And the problem with covering the cuticle, of course, is that the nails will for sure guaranteed lift. You might have some breakage also. So it just is better to keep it as clean as possible, throughout the process now, rather than try to go back in and clean it up later. Another tip that I like to give is that when working with the acrylic, make sure that you're cleaning your brush frequently. It's really important to clean your brush before putting it back in the monomer. If you have any acrylic left over in your brush and then you still try to go back in the monomer, it will clog your brush, and it will be just way harder to clean. Then it'll be all in your monomer and it'll just be a big mess. So definitely make sure that you clean your brush as much as you can in between each bead. And then, of course, you know, if you need to, you can dip it back in the monomer and clean it off a little bit more. But, you know, going back and forth between the monomer and the acrylic and the nail and then acrylic, and, you know, you have to really pay attention to what you're doing because, yeah, it can just result in a big old acrylic mess, you guys, and those are never any fun. I will do a video on how to clean a brush that has been damaged by acrylic in the future. So if you guys want to see that, just comment down below and I will do that sooner rather than later. But yeah, so I'm just going to repeat the same steps for each nail, which is working my way up. I did mention that with this length, actually any length mostly, unless it's a extra long set, and I normally get the job done with 4 beads. The apex is usually built up pretty nice, and I have a really clean, really nice, strong foundation. You can always go back in and look at the nail from different angles. Make sure that it's as clean and as built as you want it to be, because if not, you know, like I said, it's easier to just fix it now rather than later. And feel, just because, like I said, ladies, these videos are just for information, you know, just for help, just for, you know, you to see ways and techniques that may be different from yours, or maybe you're not sure where to start, and these videos help you with that. So it's not 100% guaranteed that it will work, because one thing I can say with being a nail tech for so long is that there was a lot of tips that I learned that I had to take and kind of tweak to my own liking, and it got me to where I am today. So you know, just because I say, oh, I get this done in with 4 beads, does not mean that if you do a set and you don't get yours done in 4 beads that you're doing it wrong. Okay, some nail techs I know do it with 1 bead, do it with 3, do it with 5. You know, it just really is what works for you. Take your time and you will learn your own way of doing so. But it just so happens that 9 times out of 10 with these sets, I just do a 4 bead method, and I end up with a nice clean foundation and a really nice built up apex. And her nail bed is really small also, you guys. You might have someone with a big nail bed or a wider nail bed, which results in you having to use more acrylic, whatever the case may be. So I guess the 4 bead is just kind of like a starter method, where like just a general idea of how much I use. But like I said, might be different for you, and that's totally okay. So I also want to mention that when picking up your bead, which I will do a more detailed video on this, but I just wanted to throw it in here and mention that when you're picking up your bead, you do not want your brush to be super wet or super dry. If it's super dry and you don't have enough monomer, then you will not pick up the bead correctly, and it definitely won't place correctly. And if your brush is too wet, then when you go to place your monomer, it'll just run all over the place. The acrylic, will just run all over the place. And here, if you guys are wondering before I finish with that thought, I just felt like there was a little spot that needed a little bit more acrylic, so I just went back in and added it, no problem. But yeah, ladies, so you just want your brush to be what my technique with doing this is, dipping my brush and wiping off one side, and the side that I did not wipe is the side that I used to pick up my acrylic. And that gives me a nice bead. And also, when it comes to actually picking up the bead, you don't really want to drag your brush. You don't really want to just dip it in there. What I do is I kind of just tap it and, you know, tap it a few times in the acrylic. I know that might sound a little hard to understand, which is why I said I would definitely be doing a video on this, which I will be uploading in the next few days. So make sure that you keep an eye on that if you want to learn how to properly pick up acrylic beads and when to know, you know, if this is a good bead, if this is not a good bead, is it too wet, is it too dry, am I picking it up wrong, why am I doing what she's saying, but my beads are just not coming out how they should. You know, all of that stuff I will definitely cover and I'll go over, so be tuned in for that. But yeah, I'm just going back in on the thumb and I'm adding her acrylic here, same steps as before, and then I'm going to go back in and just double check and make sure that my apex is good, my foundation is good. So as you can see, I'm now done applying the acrylic. The cuticles are super flushed and the application is really nice and neat. So that shape there is still killing it. So I'm just going to go back in with my file and I'm just going to be filing the same exact way as I explained before. But I'm not having to do too much because as you see, my application was pretty laid, you guys. So that's why I always say work smarter and not harder and just be, you know, very clean when applying the acrylic because it'll save you a lot of time in the end, which it is definitely doing so here. So there's no different steps here. I'm just, like I said, going back in and filing the same way that I did when first applying the tips. Here the only difference is that I'm just cleaning up that shape and getting it back to a nice crispy clean nail square shape. Yeah, I know that just kind of sounded like anything, you guys. I'm literally doing this voiceover at 2 in the morning. I'm so tired, but you know, I love you guys and I definitely want to keep putting out content to help as many people as I can. So I will be up, you know, at 2 a.m. if I have to be. So yeah. Another tip that I always mention in every video is to get the underside of the nail, because as that part right there that you just, this part right here as well that you just see me file. But yeah, that just gets like any excess acrylic off, any rigid, I guess I should say, nail tip. Yeah, it just gets all that from under there. Here I'm just flipping the nail, well, the hand, I guess, to a different angle, and I'm just making sure that it's as straight as I want them to be. So this is a really good way to look at your nail tips from a different view and see if they're as straight as they were looking at it from this direction, which in this case they were. That has always helped me, you guys. A lot of people always ask me like how I get my shape the way, you know, as clean as I do. And that's exactly how, just looking at it from different angles. That's so important to me because I feel like once you're, especially when you become a nail tech that's doing nails all day, or even not all day, even when you just have spent a lot of time maybe on this one particular set, when you look at something and look at something and look at something, eventually it starts to look, you know, the same or how you want it to look. So that's why when, you know, I flip the nail a whole bunch of different ways to kind of give me a different view of, even though I'm looking at the same thing, I'm looking at it differently. So I don't know, it's always helped me. So I'm just going back in with my e-file, and as you see with each nail, I start underneath at the curve of the nail tip and I just file any excess acrylic, just kind of getting it, if there is any excess acrylic, just kind of getting it out. And that also helps with the shaping. It plays a big part in keeping the tips of the nails nice and crisp and clean. So after that, I'm going back in, going around the cuticles. This is sealing the acrylic, sealing the cuticles, making sure that we will not get any lifting. This is really important, you guys, so do not skip this step. And then also, I'm just going back down throughout the whole nail, and I'm smoothing it out, making everything nice and even, making sure there's no lumps and bumps. But I can say that if you have good application, that you will not really have to worry about any of that, so it'll just be more so you sealing the cuticle and smoothing out the nail, making it nice and even. Again, ladies, one of the biggest things I can tell you when using your e-file is to make sure that you're keeping that file going and not leaving it in the same spot, because that will cause friction, and the heat is no joke, you guys. I have felt it on myself plenty of times before, and it's just not fun. It burns so bad. So definitely keep that file moving. Don't hold it in one spot too long, and you don't have to really use much pressure at all. And if for some reason, if your client does say it's hot and you feel like you're moving it and you feel like you're not leaving it in one spot, you're not really applying any pressure, and they're still having, getting that burning sensation, try to turn your file down a little bit, because just because you feel like you're doing everything how you should, the speed definitely plays a part too. So I never really have mine up too high, just enough to actually be making a difference. Yeah, so this is the nails after filing. Now I'm going to just go on with my buffer. There is a video that I have of things you need as a nail tech, must-haves, that is on my page. Well, I actually have a link to these buffers, but they're super cheap, and the pack comes with so many off Amazon, and they're so small and so easy to use. I highly recommend them, and they do the job perfectly. And like I said, you get so many of them for so cheap. So as I mentioned, I just did like a freestyle bling set for this set. So I'm just going in with my rhinestone gel, and I'm just applying it all over the nail. I am going to go back in with my little nail art brush. I have plenty of these. I bought the pack off Amazon, and I'm just going to dip in the acetone to make sure that it's nice and clean. And I'm going to use it to spread the rhinestone gel evenly throughout the nail, because when you put this under the dryer, it does dry and gives it like a top coat type of look. So if it's all like bulky and junked up, I guess you can say, that's exactly how it's going to dry. So I like to smooth it out nice and neat, and I like to wipe off the corners and the free edge to make sure there's no like excess or any dripping off, any that has kind of dripped over and took away from the shape. So I do like to dip my brush back in the acetone, because this is pretty strong and it does dry pretty quickly, and I don't want to mess up any of my brushes. So I just like to make sure it's clean before applying the rhinestone gel, and make sure it's clean after. So I'm just going to go in. These jewels that I used were kind of big, so I used my tweezers for those, and then I just used the tip of one of my old dotting tools. I got a little glue on that, and I just went in with a whole bunch of different sizes of these light rose pink rhinestones. So this is not even that big of a step, you guys. I just wanted to show it in case for some reason you were wondering how I did it. I just did the same thing for each nail. I did use all the big stones were different shapes, so I just did the same thing, took my tweezers and applied the big stones, and then went back around with the little stones. I didn't do one whole hand at a time, because with this rhinestone gel, although it works better than I can even explain, it does cause a lot of the stones to slide a lot of the times until it gets dry. So something you'll see me do, as you can see, I keep having to go back in to kind of move some around because they're just sliding. But a tip I can use, or I can recommend, which I did do in this video myself, was just do a few fingers at a time and place them underneath your dryer. You don't have to let it dry for the whole 60 seconds. One thing I can say that I noticed since I became a nail tech was using this dryer. Once I put it under there it dries instantly. The rhinestone glue literally dries super, super quick. So I just leave it in for maybe about 5 seconds, and then I come back out and I finish the rest of the nails. Doing 3 at a time was kind of challenging because the rhinestones just kept sliding and it was so annoying. So on, this hand I did do 3 nails at a time, and then I put them back in. Um, well, put them on the dryer, and then I came back and did the other 2 nails. So if you feel like you're having trouble, I would definitely say just do like 1 or 2 nails at a time rather than trying to do all of them. Or, do a nail, place it under for 3-4 seconds, do the next nail, and so on and so forth, and just keep going on with that pattern. So there's really not much to it, you guys. Just putting on this rhinestone gel and applying the stones and drying them for 60 seconds. Yeah, after I do the whole hand, I do end up, going back in and letting it dry for 60 seconds, but only because, like, the reason I don't let them dry for 60 seconds from jump is because I know that the hand is going to have to go back under when I apply the top coat or when I finish the rest of the nails. So in this case, as you seen, I did 3 nails. Obviously, they're going to have to go back under the dryer for these last 2 to dry. So I just let them dry for the 60 seconds then. And I don't film this part, but I do put top coat over the rhinestones just because I've never used these before, so I wasn't sure. I know sometimes they can start to lose their color, or whatever the case may be, and I just like them to be nice and protected. So I do do a slight little layer of top coat over them, and it turned out really cute. So yeah, same process here, you guys. I'll just let you finish watching this, and then I'll jump back in a minute. Alright, so after applying the stones, I put them back under, and this is the finished result. I love them so much. The videos do no justice, you guys. I promise they don't. I didn't get many good pictures, but these videos still, I feel like, show them off pretty good. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that it was able to help you, whether it be with just prepping or with rhinestone placement or whatever the case may be. I hope you enjoyed it. And if there's anything you want to see, like I always say, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.